I send the pestilence and plague into your house, into your bed, into your streams, into your streets, into your drink, into your bread, upon your cattle, on your sheep, upon your oxen, in your field, into your drinks, into your state, until you break, until you hear. I send the sword, I send the sword, thus saith the Lord.
Welcome to Wednesday Night's Bible Study. My name is Philip Brand, and this is
Seth Parnell.
Seth Parnell. We're glad that you made it this evening. And Seth, we are in the middle of some plagues. Yeah. So
Sounds
if you,
fun.
Yeah. So if you'll turn in your Bible to Exodus chapter 9, we're going to start with the fifth plague. And what is striking about these plagues is the amount of space that Moses gives to these plagues. Like, it's several chapters. In fact, we will not finish the plagues between now and the time the spring Bible study ends.
Okay.
So we end in May, which is just a few feet
away.
Few weeks away, and we will really run right up to the Passover. Is what will happen. So yeah, it's a lot of space given to these, and the temptation is just to rush through them. And I've had that temptation, like, let's just get there. In fact, I wanted to be at the Passover this week because next week is Easter, and I just think that would be really cool. Talk about the Passover and the blood on the doorpost and the connection between it all and the cross and all that kind of stuff. It'd be really neat. But we will not talk about that until the fall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, a little Easter in the fall.
A little Easter in the fall.
Christmas in July, Easter in the fall.
That's right. Another thing that, as we start this, these plagues probably took 9 months to a year. So sometimes I think people think, and I've thought this, that they just, one after another, 1 week after another, they just kind of went. But some of these plagues actually lasted a long time. So about 9 months of plagues.
Wow.
Could be 6, but probably 9, just based on some of the markers here, time markers in the text. So that said, let's get to plague number 5.
All right.
Okay. Plague number 5. By the way, we just came off of plague of flies. Before that, gnats. Before that, frogs. All right. Yep. Frogs.
Yep.
And before that, blood in the water. Blood in the water. So chapter 9, verse 1 says, Then the Lord said to Moses, we'll pause right here to just repeat ourselves. Here again, the outline starts with God telling Moses and Aaron what to do. And then the initiation of the plague.
Okay.
That's really the outline that follows through all of them. There are variances to how these go down. We'll discuss a couple of those today, but those are the two things that happen. Of course, the plague ends and then another plague starts. It is what occurs. Sometimes we're just assuming that the plague ends, but we're pretty sure it did. Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, go into Pharaoh. So they're going into him. This is not something that happens every time. Go into Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go that they may serve me. Now, in this phrase, the thing that's the same as before is let my people go that they may serve me. The thing that is different in this passage is thus says the Lord, and this phrase is different, God of the Hebrews. So now Yahweh is identifying himself verbally with Pharaoh to tell him who he is. So this is an add-on here. Verse 25, or I'm sorry, not verse 25. Verse 2, we're not there yet. Verse 2, for if you refuse to let them go and still hold on to them, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall with a very severe plague upon your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, the flocks. So this is quite the list of livestock here.
Yeah.
So a couple of things about this. First of all, when it says, if you refuse to let them go, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall with a very severe plague upon your livestock that are in the field. Field is actually a word, it's a general term for open ground. So if your livestock is not in the field, this plague will not plague them. So all the animals that are in a building, all the animals that are put up will not be affected by this plague, just the ones that are outside. This is important to understand because in the very next plague we have cattle. So where did they get the cattle?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, they could have got them from Goshen, but there were some cattle that survived this particular plague, and that's how they survived it. They were not in the open field. Horses here are, of course, used for warfare, not anything else. Donkeys are used for heavy burdens. So if you need to carry something to one place to the other, that's the trucking.
Right.
That's the trucking business of
Yeah.
Egypt. Just a bunch of donkeys with a bunch of stuff on them. I also think it's interesting that when it says, behold, the hand of God will fall, a very severe plague upon your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys. Actually, in the Hebrew, a very severe plague does not occur until the end of that verse. So it would say, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall upon your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, the flocks, with a very severe plague. So when Hebrew does that, Hebrew emphasizes what's important at the end of the sentence rather than the beginning of the sentence. So this is a sense in which this is emphasized. It's going to be very, very severe. In other words, Moses is communicating, God is communicating to Pharaoh that this plague is not a mere coincidence, nor will it be just an inconvenience to the Egyptians. This will be more than that. Death has begun to lurk in these passages because now livestock is dying, and death becomes a theme throughout the plagues. At this moment, it lurks in a frightening sort of way underneath all the plagues that come from this point on. And it is showing that the God of the Hebrews is the God who is really in charge of death and life. So the death of these cattle is that first kind of theme that he's trying to get the Egyptians to understand. Yeah. So, in life we're told not to discriminate.
Okay.
Right? Don't discriminate against people. Treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
God doesn't do that. So in verse 4, it says, but the Lord will make a distinction. That particular word distinction can also be translated, he will discriminate. Okay, between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die. So this is God discriminating against a race because he wants to punish them, and another race because he wants to bless them. Now you might say that discrimination is a too negative of a word. Well, I guess it depends on which side of the discrimination you're on. Like if you're on the side of the Jews and it's all positive, you're like, yeah, great. But if you're on the side of the Egyptians that's getting this punishment, it's pretty bad. And they are not being treated equally in this. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that we should discriminate against people. Don't read that into this. But what I am saying is there's times where God discriminates between the good and the evil, are the ones he wants to bless and the ones he wants to punish. And why he chooses that, sometimes we have the answer for it and sometimes we don't. But he's a God. He's always good. He always has the right intentions and he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it's fine for us to make choices about people the ones that we need to be around and the ones that we don't need to be around. Yeah, I can't take that too far because we don't have time, but God definitely does that here.
Yeah.
So distinction.
People that he loves and chose were being trampled over.
Yeah. People he has a covenant with.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is punishment against them, the Egyptians.
Which means that for us as the church, he's going to discriminate against the world that do not know him one day. I'm currently doing my devotions out of Revelation, and God definitely discriminates between the people that do not believe in him and the people that do. He discriminates against the people that are following the beast and the Antichrist in the last 7 years of tribulation, and he blesses the martyrs that get killed during the tribulation period of time. So he blesses his people, and he does do that discrimination. And it's depending on which side of discrimination you're on, whether or not that's positive or negative. But I think it's interesting that word can also be translated discriminate. Distinction, discriminate. So that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die. And the Lord set a time, saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land. Oh, by the way, back up to verse 4. That Hebrew word actually means a marvelous distinction. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. Yeah. So he'll set a time. By the way, verse 4 also tells us again that the children of Israel are God's people and not Pharaoh's people. And so he's making that distinction. He's making that discrimination between the two. And it's very clear in this particular plague.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost that word for a moment. Sorry about that. Verse 5, and the Lord set a time, saying tomorrow. So this shows that because it's planned, it's not a coincidence. Because it's planned, it's not Moses and Aaron saying something that they see happening in Egypt and then jumping on it and saying that God is doing it. This is something that will start tomorrow. So currently there's no cattle dying. There's no cattle that is sick. There's no cattle that are in stress or distress. None at all. This is going to start tomorrow with the ones in the open field. And the next day the Lord did this thing. Now the difference here is that we do not have Aaron and Moses going out raising a staff. God just does it. So there's no visual of them doing something for this plague to start, which reinforces that everything that Aaron and Moses is doing is by the power of God through them. He just chooses this time not to use them and do it on his own. Yeah. So the next day the Lord did this thing, and all the livestock of the Egyptians died. Now that's all the livestock that's in the field, because we had that distinction before, right? Of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. Not one of them did. So they were unaffected by the plague. And what we know by plagues and diseases in animals is that it does jump from animal to animal to animal. Most of the time, if it's something that's killing an animal, and it's killing a lot of them, it's very contagious. I mean, we've had a scare like that in this country before, in other places in the world, where you had to get rid of a bunch of cows, you had to get rid of a bunch of chickens, you had to get rid of a bunch of stuff because of the contagiousness of the disease. Well, here, it didn't go into the land of Goshen. I will remind everybody that Moses uses the land of Goshen because that's where the majority of the children of Israel were. But we know that because of slavery and the way slavery works, and because of the different projects all over Egypt, that there were Jews living in other places in Egypt. We have noted this before. And so this is a generalization of saying there's none of the children of Israel's cattle or anything will die. So even within each town, they're not going to be touched. They're going to be spared. Yeah. So what does Pharaoh do? Well, Pharaoh has heard reports that none of the children of Israel's cattle has died. None of their horses, their donkeys, their sheep, their goats, or whatever it is has died. And so he doesn't quite believe the reports he's receiving.
So I bet that made him feel really good.
So what he does is he sent, and behold, he sent, in other words, he sent people out to investigate to see if this was true. Okay? And behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead. So he got confirmation that that happened in that way. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, made heavy, and he did not let the people go. He didn't let them go. Couple of things. This particular plague is a slap in the face to a couple of deities of the Egyptians, just like the rest of them were. I don't know really how to pronounce these real well. Hathor, which was the goddess of love and protection, somebody that protects you against disease, somebody that heals you because they love you and they want you not to be sick. Okay. The other one was a god that was called Patha, P-T-H, or Patha. Yeah, and it's a, man, I can't even think. Oh, it's a bull god. Sorry, I couldn't think of the name bull. It's a bull god. And so, interesting this god is, because they would choose a bull to be the incarnation of this god. And then when that bull died, they would actually create a tomb for it. So there are little pyramids for these animals. And they would bury that animal in there, and once the ceremony was over, somebody chose the next bull to be the incarnation of Patha.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was a kind of a slap in the face to him. One of the reasons is he was a god of medicine, a god of healing as well. And so he wasn't able to prevent the rest of the cattle from dying in the land of Egypt. The only god that was able to do that was the God of the Hebrews.
So God, Yahweh, didn't just tamper with their economic system. He tampered with their divine system.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he continued to challenge the religious beliefs of the Egyptians through each one of these plagues. And the message is, your God has no power at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. It's powerful. So before we go to the 8th or the 6th plague, what do you think?
I don't know. I think that's interesting that I know this from the times I have read Exodus, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Israel, they were able to keep their livestock. And what a slap in the face to Pharaoh that, we're being protected and you're not.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong here. You're doing something that's not right, and we're being blessed by our God. But I didn't know that about the Patha or whatever.
Patha. Yeah.
And how God just basically wiped out that incarnation of the bull.
Yeah, so they must have had to make a tomb, and then unless they had one inside,
yeah,
that incarnation of that God is gone. Yeah. So,
and I guess technically he could have been inside, but still, he wiped out everything else. So.
He wiped out everything else.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, 7th plague. This is a great one. Same outline. God tells Moses and Aaron what to do. The plague happens, and then the plague ends. That's basically the outline that is consistent through all of these. Verse 8. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take handfuls of soot from the kindling, and let Moses throw them in the air in the sight of Pharaoh. What you need to note from this one is both Aaron and Moses are taking soot, handfuls of soot from the kindling. But Moses is the one that's throwing it into the air. So Moses takes his 2 handfuls, he throws them into the air. Aaron must pour his handful into Moses' hands, and then Moses throws it into the air. That's kind of the visual I get, because it doesn't say both Aaron and Moses throwing them into the air. And there's no textual cues to say that they both did it. Just Moses. It's supposed to be done in the presence of Pharaoh. And this plague comes without warning. There is no let my people go. There is no if you don't, this is what's going to happen. This absolutely comes without warning. So verse 9 says, it shall become fine dust over all the land of Egypt and become boils breaking out in sores, all man and beast throughout all the land of Egypt. So now the animals that were sheltered are now going to have this disease. That is not as remarkable. I mean, I think that's very remarkable. Don't get me wrong. What I think is impressive is basically 4 handfuls of soot multiply.
Yeah.
Because that's what the text says. And it spread as dust all over the land of Egypt. So he throws it in Pharaoh's presence, and right in front of Pharaoh, this dust starts multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, and it fills wherever they're at, and it starts filling outside of the palace. It fills the neighborhood of the palace. It fills the city that the palace is in, and then goes into the country, and the next city, the next town, the next place that's occupied, and it goes throughout all the land of Egypt. The soot just keeps multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. Now, this past Friday, I was at my mom's house and cleaning out the shop, my dad's shop, and he had a bucket of ash from the stove. And I threw it in the yard vehicle and took it into the woods and dumped it out. And there was, some white ash that comes up, but then it just dissipated and went away. This is a cloud that doesn't dissipate. It just keeps going and going and going. And if it touches you, it's giving you sores.
Yeah. That's an interesting connection. Like, what would the connection of the soot from the kiln and boils? That's interesting.
It is very interesting. Yeah. This is the first time, and I heard that question, this is the first time direct physical impact happens on the Egyptians. Everything else, we're thinking that the flies bit them. We are thinking that the gnats bit them. Here's a direct, yes, they have bowls. They have stuff on them. Okay? So there's stuff happening to them. Yeah. So verse 10, so they took soot from the kindling and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses threw it in the air, and it became bowls breaking out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the bowls, for the bowls came upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. So these guys couldn't do anything about this. Nothing at all about this. And it was so bad that nobody could stand before Moses. This is also the last time that we see the magicians in this story. The sorcerers, the magicians, the wise men of Egypt, they are gone after this. The bulls and stuff, it is a demonstration that God has overcome the false religion of the Egyptians. I'm going to pause here a moment to say this. There is only one truth that you can believe in.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of religions, but they are not all going to the same place. I preached on this a little bit Sunday, but didn't say this part, but I think it fits here. All lies lead to a bigger lie. There is no lies that lead to the truth. And so when it comes to what we believe, we know that this is the truth because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but through him. And it's not just because we chose to believe Christianity. It's because we currently have a personal relationship with God. And we know this to be true for various reasons. And so we promote the truth here that you can believe in Jesus, you can believe in Yahweh, the God that's doing all these plagues, and you can follow him into heaven. and you can worship him. But all other religions don't lead to the same place.
Yeah.
Because lies cannot lead to the truth. Only truth can lead to truth. So you see how that fits here. These magicians are trying to keep a lie going, but they can't. They don't have the power to do it because their whole religion is false. Moses can keep this going because he is serving the one true God who is the only way.
Yeah.
Does that make?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So I think God demonstrates false religions all the time in their falseness. You just have to have your eyes open for it, and shows you how they are false. So, where were their gods of healing?
Right.
For the bowls. Why couldn't they heal people? Why couldn't the magicians and the religious Egyptian leaders provide assistance to these bowls that were on them? What other story does these bowls remind you of?
Saying it that way makes you think of the 7 bowl judgments.
Oh no,
But
no. Yeah, I did say Revelation earlier. It's not that. However, there is a bowl judgment in Revelation that has bowls to it.
Spelled differently though. Oh, a bowl that has boils?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. A bowl, B-O-W-L, that has B-O-I-L. Is that right? B-O-I-L-S?
Yep.
Yeah. They're pronounced the same way, obviously.
In Colfax.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. In this arena, in Farmington too, obviously. Yeah.
Another story about the sores. I mean,
I'll
it
give
makes
you-
me think of like the lepers, but that's
No,
lepers.
I would say that there's people cracking pots and scraping themselves with it because they hurt so bad.
Yeah, like the people in the wilderness. Pots.
Job.
Oh, okay.
Job.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I was leading you there, but
I gotcha.
obviously I wasn't. Okay. Obviously I wasn't.
So many books to choose from.
Yeah, so many. So we get to verse 12, and it says, "But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh." This is the first time that we see that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart in this story. What we have seen is that Pharaoh constantly made his heart heavy, hardened his heart toward God, and would not believe. Even though he would admit that he needed to repent so a plague would go away, even though he would admit that there was a powerful God at work and asked Moses to get rid of a plague, even though he saw these miracles happen right before his eyes, and there was plenty of evidence to show him that the Hebrew God was real and powerful. But he still kept hardening his heart. Now, God comes in and he hardens Pharaoh's heart. Interesting thing about that word usage there is that hardening means he made Pharaoh's heart intractable. So he couldn't retract his belief any longer. He is now cemented in. He's locked in. God made him locked into his belief that he was all powerful and that the God of the Hebrews wasn't the true God, and he wasn't going to let,
Right.
locked in against God.
Right.
Is what I'm
Right.
saying. Yeah. So that's very scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Scary to know that, I mean, if it could happen to Pharaoh, it could happen to any unbeliever.
Absolutely. The person who has persisted in not letting the people go is now deprived of the choice to do anything else. So you can persist in your sin and persist to do it over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually, God is going to make your persistence intractable. You're not going to be able to retract that, and you're stuck. And he will, according to Romans, give you over to your desire to do that particular sin. to stand against him, to run away. And I think this is a warning. I think it's a warning for Christians that we need to be following God, and if we're not, God will also give us over as well. I'm not saying we lose our salvation. Don't take it that way. But he'll let that sin punish us for what we're doing. He'll lock us in. Yeah. What was your question before? What did you say before? I should have jumped on it then.
That's okay. About
it was about this plague, and I said almost responded, but I didn't respond.
I don't know. We'll replay the tape.
Yeah, I forgot I was going to answer it right now. But the two gods that's talked about here is Isis, I-S-I-S, Isis. Yeah, which is the goddess of medicine and peace, which is kind of similar to the other ones. Because in this one you needed medication for humans, and the other one it was medication for animals, which was the bull god. I don't know if you know anything about medicine, but veterinarian medicine is different than human medicine. There's some stuff that veterinarians give animals they should never give humans because of the way that the bodies are made up. So this is the god of medicine and peace. So obviously the Egyptians were smart enough to know the difference in the physiology of the humans and the animals, different animals. And then a god named Sekhmet. And I'm saying that real fast because I don't know how to say it. Sekhmet. S-E-K-H-M-E-T. Sekhmet. Right? And this was a lion-headed goddess of plagues who is responsible for epidemics. Who is responsible for epidemics.
Like COVID.
Yeah, well, definitely bowls and stuff, and capable of healing people who was affected by them. The reason that she was able to heal the people is because she started the plague. She would start the bowls, and then you could pray to her, and she would relieve you of the bowls that she started. That is just a great God to have in your entourage to worship.
Yeah.
The God of plagues that will give you a plague so that you will have to pray to her so that she can heal you of that plague. Here in this passage, it is showing that God is the God of plagues and healing. He is the one that can send this judgment and bring it back. And he's not sending plagues so that you will pray to him for healing. He is sending plagues because he's judging you for something that you did wrong. And you need to repent, and then you'll see whether or not the plague is lifted or not. So what do you think about all that?
It's a lot of gods with words, names that are hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's just another demonstration of God's power over these people, and the fact that he is constantly hardening Pharaoh's heart. Like, I feel like if I was...
he hardened at one time.
Okay. And
this is the first time.
Okay. I thought it was the other one too. Anyways.
Well, no, Moses hardened his own... I mean, not Moses. Pharaoh hardened his own heart
Gotcha.
with the fifth plague. But,
Gotcha. So the fact that I feel like as the people of Egypt, I would be going and begging Pharaoh, stop.
Yeah.
Like, you're hurting us out of your pride and arrogance. You're hurting all of us. Just let these Hebrews go and do their thing.
Well, the character arc here, to give a spoiler for the next two lessons, they do say this is destroying our nation.
Yeah.
Just get them out of here. Let's put them on a plane and send them somewhere. Yeah. Not to say anything political. I'm just, let's get these people that aren't supposed to be in our country out of here because their God is just coming down on us.
Yeah. It's interesting.
They didn't like the Jews anyway. They just liked the fact that they did their work.
But,
All right. Well, that's it. Until next week. Grace and peace.
Send the storm, I send the Then let my heart be hardened, and never mind how high the toss may grow. This will still be so. I will never let